Hello my Access to HE fledglings. This is a screencast on the inflammatory response and is the second part of the non-specific immune system for the infectious disease unit. Let's recap the human immune system. There are two branches of the human immune system, the non-specific and the specific. The non-specific immune system occurs very fast, it's immediate, but it is, as the name suggests, non-specific, which really means that it's not identifying what it needs to fight. It just knows that it shouldn't be there and it fights against it or protects against it. Whereas the specific system does have a clue as to what pathogen is there. Obviously it doesn't see it, but it knows and has encountered it before or has trained to see it, and therefore it does take a little bit of time to get that done, but fortunately for us it's nuclear. It completely destroys the pathogen involved. Today we're continuing our section on the non-specific system, and specifically we're talking about the inflammatory response. So, in our castle analogy, if our body's a castle, we have barriers put in place to stop an invading army from reaching the castle. We have a moat, we have high walls, and they're barriers to infection. Our body has the same. It has chemical and physical barriers that stop infection from having the chance to cause disease. So things like our stomach acid, things like our eyelashes, things like our nasal hairs, mucous membranes, sebum, the fact that our skin sheds, all these things that were in our last video are those barriers to infection. But some things breach those defences. Some things get over the wall with ladders and crafty things, to the field of battle. And so this video, in terms of the inflammatory response, is what happens when our barriers are broken? What happens when our mucous membranes are breached? Well, we need to ring the alarm bell for the barracks. We need the troops to get out there and to start fighting. And that's what the inflammatory response is about. It's about bringing the troops to the fight, about mobilizing a response and making sure that the damage is minimized. And that's what we're going to talk about today in terms of the inflammatory response. The inflammatory response we can see all over the body to traumatic events, for example, or we can sort of see it in localized infections. I'm going to take you back to last summer, as it were, and I was doing some gardening and I unfortunately put the pitchfork, yeah, you guessed it, right through my foot. What a complete and utter idiot. So there's the end of the pitchfork, there's the top of my foot, or the cells underneath the surface of my foot, and you can guarantee that this pitchfork had some nasties on the end of it. Now, when we talk about the inflammatory response, which is certainly what I felt after that unfortunate incident, or stupid incident if you like, I definitely felt redness. I definitely felt pain. I definitely felt swelling. And I also felt heat. They're the four sort of common symptoms or signs of an inflammatory response. And what would have happened to me, or to my cells underneath the surface of my skin, is some of them would have sort of popped, some of them would have been destroyed, some of them would detect that trauma and they would release chemical messages called cytokines. Cytokines, they're little chemical messengers. And those little chemical messengers trigger a certain type of cell which is underneath the skin called a mast cell. And mast cells respond in kind by secreting a molecule that you'll have heard of before called histamine. Those people that suffer from hay fever or have had an allergic reaction will know the effects of histamine, because histamine is a vasodilator and causes vasodilation. That means a swelling, that means a dilation of the blood vessels. So if I draw a capillary under here, these are the cells of the capillary, and capillaries are 1 cell thick. It's here where a lot of our soldiers are flowing around the body, ready to attack. Here are our macrophages, here are macrophages. They're phagocytes, they're general eaters of pathogens, and they're ready and waiting to fight. But they're trapped in the blood, traveling around the body. So we need some way of accessing the battlefield, which is now our fluid underneath my foot. The histamine binds to receptors on the capillary wall, and that causes vasodilation of the capillary. So this capillary now, I'm doing it only a localized drawing, this capillary starts to dilate, which I'm hoping you can see means that these white blood cells, these eaters of pathogens, come out into the battlefield, because the vasodilation causes leaky capillaries. The capillaries become leaky, they have little holes, they become porous, and these white blood cells start to find their way into the area. And you can see that that sort of inflammatory response has kind of made a barrier to further infection. You know, if we were getting infection up here in the top left, we want to make a barrier so it doesn't spread to further parts of the body, and that's what is happening right here. So these macrophages, these phagocytes, these white blood cells start destroying the bacteria, which is fantastic, which is what we want, isn't it? Also, the blood starts to fill the area, which causes this redness and this heat. Because the vasodilation, the fact that the capillaries go from sort of yay wide to yay wide, means that there's more blood flow into the area. So this blood starts to fill the area. The white blood cells roll along the wall of the capillaries and squeeze out into the area. That's called diapedesis. Diapedesis, that's right. And that's when the white blood cells roll and squeeze through the gaps. We have also got Y-shaped proteins in our blood, and they also leak out into the area. And these Y-shaped proteins are called antibodies, which you'll see more of in the next video. Antibodies. And they tag pathogens for destruction. So if they grab hold of a virus, or if they attach to the virus or the bacteria, in this case the cell membrane, they allow these white blood cells to see, almost, they've obviously got no eyes, but they bind with the antibodies, take them in and chomp them up. Now, what I didn't know until relatively recently is because all these proteins are flooding the area, you've got these cells which are made of protein, and you've got these antibodies and complement proteins as well, which you can Google if you find the time, causes this area to become an area of low water potential. Now I'd like to take you back to my cell biology stuff, where we know that osmosis, water travels from high water potential to low water potential. And so what we've got is a situation where all the proteins are flooding the area, which causes this to be an area of high water potential. It's watery. It's suddenly a lot waterier than what it was. And over here, you've got loads in the orange. You've got loads of proteins that are making it a low water potential, and so water starts to seep out into the fluid of the body. And that water, that fluid, causes it to really sort of pack up, and that water causes pain through the swelling that it causes, and that's where the swelling comes from. Okay, so that's pretty much the inflammatory response, and that explains how inflammation occurs and why the symptoms of it occur, and how the body deals with the invaders that have just broken the barriers to the body.